All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's also tell you what's been happening back home for Donald Trump. While Donald Trump might be chest thumping on tariffs, he has faced a huge failure set back home. People of Wisconsin delivered a big blow to the Republicans as they came out in record numbers, making Democrat Judge Susan Crawford win the Supreme Court seat. Now, this particular election was the first big litmus test for Donald Trump after the 20th January inauguration, reflecting what people think of his decisions and policies so far. Trump had won Wisconsin by a whisker in the 2024 November elections, and this has been the biggest jolt to him till now. The Wisconsin Supreme Court will now have a 4-3 liberal majority, defying Elon Musk's record-shattering effort to boost the conservative judge Brad Schimel. This race assumed national significance in U.S. when Trump endorsed Schimel, the conservative candidate, and Elon Musk pumped in millions of dollars into this battle. It puts the Republicans in a dock because, remember, they're entering a midterm election cycle, and what happens now will impact what happens then. It would also have an effect on issues like abortion rights, redrawing of district boundaries, and other decisions where Republicans and Democrats stand starkly opposite to each other. Joining me tonight to talk more on this is David Sofair, Republican strategist, and Christopher Hale, Democratic strategist. Good evening and namaskar to both of you. David Sofair, let me begin with you. While Donald Trump might be having all of us, people around the world, on their toes as far as tariffs are concerned, domestically, clearly people aren't very happy with him. What happened in the Supreme Court election?
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for having me. And this was a purple state, that's Wisconsin. And what happened there, it was a 20% victory. And, she won it fair and square. There was also big money on the Democrat side as well. So, that needs to be taken into account. It's important to point out to your viewers that this is a state election, and this is not the federal Supreme Court. So there's a difference in the states between state and federal Supreme Courts. So that's where we are. She won it, and it's a shame, but that's where we stand, and that's where we are.
Do you see it as a referendum on what Trump and Elon Musk have been doing in America since the 20th of January? Because Wisconsin is a state where Donald Trump had won by a slim margin last year. So clearly there was support earlier, but that support has dwindled.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, when it comes to voting for the judges on a statewide thing, it has a lot to do with door to door, and the voter turnout is a lot less. The Democrats there also had a very good ground campaign, and their message was quite good. In my opinion, though, it's quite a shame because I don't think that Judge Crawford, she is a far left judge, so that's a shame. I think that there will be some, repercussions for the greater good of the state. So that's where we are with that. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in other states.
Christopher Hale? Okay, let me get in Christopher Hale on this. Christopher, do you agree with what David Sofair is saying? The fact that, it was a purple state, you didn't know where it will go, and it is just a state court that these elections are for. And it's not such a big deal as it is being made out to be.
I think the reality of it is that this is more revelatory of the new nature of Democrats versus Republicans in this country. Growing up in Democratic politics, the mantra was, if everyone votes, Democrats will win. But the reality of Trump 2.0, and in some ways Trump 1.0, is that Trump has much more low propensity voters that show up to vote for him every 4 years, but are not going to show up for special elections or midterms. Democrats tend to be more highly attuned to the nature of day in and day out politics. And I think this is reflective of that. The Republican Party is going to be set up very well. Every time Donald Trump has been on the ballot since 2016, they have overperformed not just the federal level, but at the state and local level. You'll remember in 20, even when he lost the election, Republicans did quite a bit better than expected at the congressional level. But every time in the Trump era, when he is not on the ballot and there are lower turnout elections, my party wins. And so if I'm a Republican strategist, I'm deeply concerned about what things look like for November 2026, but maybe even more so, November 2028. Barack Obama's coalition that took up my party to power for nearly a decade no longer exists. Hillary Clinton could not pick up that mantle. It seems that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris not in the same way either did. Who's going to pick up the Donald Trump coalition, those low propensity voters who will show up for Donald Trump, but seemingly nobody else? So I am skeptical that the successor to MAGA movement can get those numbers. And so I think the two most concerned people in this country today are Ron DeSantis and JD Vance.
You want to come in on
I
this,
wholeheartedly
David
do.
Sofair, of what Christopher hit? Yeah,
Well,
go
that's a
ahead.
good point,
Go
Christopher,
ahead.
because as you may know, we also had a election in Florida as well. So that was there was two elections there, and those were both double-digit landslides that just happened now as well in Florida. So Florida does remain red. I guess that you do have a good point about the low propensity turnouts in certain states when it comes to the GOP side. So again, this is not the end of the world, and it's not reflective on the tone or the mood of the rest of the country. So, as reflected today in Florida. So no, I don't think that Governor Santos is concerned about this or concerned about the state of Florida being flipped blue.
Can I then ask you, David Sofair, as a strategist for the Republican Party, what would you take away from the victory that the Democrats have had in Wisconsin? Yes, Florida has remained, red, and all credit to the Republicans for that. You've also got that voter ID victory there. But as far as Wisconsin is concerned, as the Republican strategist, what would be your big takeaways or lessons from here?
What lessons from here is, we're going to keep going, and we are going to keep restoring, law and order within our country. We are going to restore jobs, and we are going to make America grow again. So that's really where we are. So that's the strategy. The past 4 years, we're cleaning up a lot of debt and our immigration crisis. So we're staying focused on that. So that's where we are within the party. So that's our strategy.
Okay, Christopher Hale, you want to come in on the fact that, since the 20th of January, there have been several executive orders that have been signed. And I think all of us around the world have lost the count of the number of executive orders that President Trump has signed every day. But the fact of the matter is that these executive orders are impacting the daily lives of people in America. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why a lot of people are also dissatisfied with what is happening, with the kind of, risks of losing their jobs that federal workers have been facing. Many of them have already lost their jobs. And the kind of work that Dodge has been doing under Elon Musk. Do you think the Wisconsin victory is also reflective of how people are dissatisfied with the Trump administration so far?
It's easy to campaign on chaos. It's actually quite effective. It's harder to govern on chaos because governance in itself reflects some sense of organization, some sense of priority. And this administration seems to be moving with the wind from left to right. Today is the National Day of Liberation, but it's the third month in a row that we've had threats of tariffs that we're not sure how long will be in place for what period of time. And if there's something our allies in India and across the world want, and also businesses here in the United States, it's predictability, it's stability. I think I want to say that I mentioned Ron DeSantis not because of Florida. Florida's a red state. That's done. But I'm talking about 2026 and 2028, the aspirations of this party to move into a post-Trump era. And I think the biggest cudgel against that is actually Elon Musk. My party did not run against Donald Trump in Wisconsin. We ran against Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the most unpopular person in Washington, D.C. right now. His approval ratings below 40% in the mid 30s. I think the closer he is to Donald Trump, the more it hurts the movement. And just breaking today, we just got a news report within the hour that perhaps we're closer to a breakup. It seems that President Trump and Elon Musk came to agreement that Elon would slowly back away from the daily activities of Doge. And I think that's also a sense of Republicans realize that he's a liability. We won by 10. Republicans won by 10, 11 points in Florida. They won by 35 points 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So that's a 20-point shift just a few months. Elise Stefanik, who was the UN ambassador designate for the United States, had to withdraw from that seat because they were afraid in a seat that she won by 20 points that there might be issue with her successor being a Democrat. And the math works out. If you're in a seat where you won by 20 points and you just had a 20-point shift in Florida, Republicans are rightly concerned. And that's why today, Elon Musk is why today, Elise Stefanik is not the United Nations ambassador, the United States ambassador to the United Nations.
David Sofair, you want to come in on this important point that Christopher Hale is making, and this has been a perception of Elon Musk that he's the proxy president of the United States, that he's the shadow president, he's running the government, and probably he's doing more harm to the Trump administration than what Donald Trump thought he would bring to the table.
The day he's a senior government advisor, he's advising on policy. It's not the first time the president has done this. The idea of fight oligarchy from the Democrats. I mean, look, Dems, you guys have billionaires that you cozy up to as well. George Soros, and the list goes on. Mark Zuckerberg. Also, when you talk about 2026 or 2028, what the Dems have is they run on a campaign where they don't have somebody in there. They don't have their Obama figure anymore, right? It's a fragmented party and there's nobody at the helm. So they really need to find out who that person is going to be, go away, restructure, and do it in a peaceful way. We've seen a lot of violence, against Elon Musk, which has been, organized and on our college campuses. So, I'd advise the Democratic Party to do this in a peaceful way. Go away, restructure, and, come back with a proper, viable candidate who can really go against Trump. So the rest is just noise, in my opinion.
Christopher, fair point that David Sofair is making, that the Democrats don't really have a prominent face right now. You had Joe Biden, he was taken out of the race, then Kamala Harris came in, but she couldn't make the kind of impact that, was thought she would made out to be. At least the Republicans have Donald Trump as a face, as the president. Whom do the Democrats have?
Look, I think the reality of it is in political movements, you need two sources of unification. One is, in fact, a leader of a party, of a movement, but the other is a common enemy. In fact, in many ways, the common enemy itself is more unifying. I think the reality of it is we are pivoting from hopefully, God willing, doesn't try to break the Constitution, try to run for a third term in office. But I think a post-Trump era is really going to focus on folks like Elon Musk. For our party, we do need a leader, and we're going to have something in 2028 that we haven't had since 2020, and that is an open contested primary. There is nothing more solidifying and unifying for a party than to go through a democratic process to elect its leader. I think that it did hamstring Kamala Harris, that she was more or less appointed as the de facto nominee without going through a rigorous process. But in the meantime, we do not need a single leader to win in 2026, posting photos and posting arguments against Elon Musk and Donald Trump were very effective last night in Wisconsin and effective in Florida too. And they will be effective, making them the number one political target for Democrats in 2026 will lead a pathway to victory.
But I'll tell you what, Christopher, yes, there are concerns about Elon Musk, being the shadow president, but the two men, the two gentlemen, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, also find a lot of support, which is why, of course, they're at the helm of the affairs. They won the election. But even today, they have a lot of support when they talk about the Doge, when they talk about cutting the kind of expenditure that the American government was doing on things that perhaps were not needed for US to be doing for other countries. So there is that support. It's not, it's not that everybody is against these two people.
No doubt about it. I
we're
think
happy.
Go ahead, you go first. Sorry about that.
Yeah, David, I'll come to you. Christopher, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the big thing I would say is that the popularity of Doge is about 50%. That is higher than I like it. I think that Doge is actually doing really harmful things, but we are losing the messaging war on Doge right now. The third rail of politics, which I don't think Elon Musk has picked up on yet, is Medicare and Social Security. If Twitter's gone down a few times this week. If Twitter goes down, it's not a national emergency. It's not a national scandal. If Social Security and Medicare systems go down, it is. So this cut now, figure it out later approach is starting to get to the vital organs of the American government. Look, the United
but to his
States
credit, Christopher, Elon Musk
essentially
has been clarifying that the Social Security will not go away.
Not going anywhere.
He also said it was a Ponzi scheme. I mean, so which Elon Musk are we going to take? I mean, is it a Ponzi scheme or is it a viable, reliable system to take care of Americans in their later years? He's talking out of both sides of his mouth here. And I think the reality of it is that they do plan on reforming Social Security. Reform is always welcome. Cuts will not be welcomed by the American people.
So the cuts are overwhelmingly welcome, when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, you have old presidents like Barack Obama, right? He was saying that one of his initiatives, which of course he did not fulfill, was to cut big government. DEC is a bloated place. It is a bureaucratic place at the expense of the American taxpayer, of course. So cutting down these programs is a good thing. Of course, Elon Musk is unpopular in DC, as it's 97% or 95% registered Democrat, right? And it's all, federal workers and all of that. So this is a good thing that we're cutting down all this stuff. Also with the tariffs or whatever, that is also a good thing. So we are going to make America we'll go through a hard time.
Okay, so this political war of words will continue. Okay, but this was the first test that did not go in the favor of the Republicans. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you gentlemen, Christopher Hale and David Sofair, for joining us. I have paucity of time, so I have to wrap it up here. But thank you very much. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, on Global Mirror. We'll have to see how Donald Trump really moves forward as far as his politics is concerned domestically and the tariffs are concerned internationally. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Up next is Ritanshu Bhattacharya with Beyond the Headline.